Hey everyone, it's time for another story. This story is coming from the Kingfishers book of quests, and it is called The Wrath of the Dragon.
All the beast had left behind was death and destruction. People were running around with buckets filled with clear blue water.
Kriskaku was one of those people. He was running back and forth from the stone well faster than anyone else. When the orange fires had been put out, the chief gathered everyone in.
"The dragon will not stop," he roared. "I need a volunteer to kill the beast."
I will kill it,
said a voice in the crowd. "Who said that?"
bellowed the chief. I did, replied Kriskaku, stepping to the front.
"Very well," said the chief.
As soon as that was said, Kriskaku was already packing. He was ready for adventure.
When he was about to leave the tent, he heard a voice say,
"Wait!"
Before he knew it, his dad was in front of him. He had unwrapped a silver-bladed sword with a golden hilt.
"Take it,"
Kriskaku, father said.
"I killed my first one with this."
Roloff had just returned, and as soon as he saw what was happening, a look of happiness rose across his face.
"You go do that quest," he said, and walked off. "Be careful," said Kriskaku's father.
"I will."
"Oh, don't forget this," said his father, giving his son the sword.
As Kriskaku left the village behind, he could hear cheers of applause. A smile broke across his face. The journey was about to start.
He was barely out of the village when he felt a jab in his stomach. He looked down, and stood in front of him was a small creature with dagger-like teeth.
"What are you?" said Kriskaku, jumping back in the tall grasses of the arid plains.
"I am a goblin. I wish not to harm you, but to challenge you," said the goblin.
Kriskaku drew his sword. "I accept your challenge," he replied.
The goblin ran, jumped, and then slashed. Kriskaku replied with a deflection. The goblin fell to the stony floor. He tried to scramble to his feet, but Kriskaku was already there, sword at the goblin's neck.
Okay, the goblin said with defeat in his voice. "You win. I guess I should help you on your quest."
"How did you know about my quest?" asked Kriskaku.
"I know many things that others don't. I suppose I should introduce myself. I am Renua. I will follow you on your quest."
Kriskaku started to walk away, heading toward the Fraslo jungle. He could already smell the poison in the flowers.
He could taste the bitter air, but worst of all, he could hear great bellows.
They were getting closer and closer, until an enormous troll stood in front of them. The stench was unbearable, and it got worse with every breath the troll took.
"It looks like I'm going to have a nice dinner tonight," the troll bellowed.
The two looked at each other and drew their swords. "You keep him distracted while I deal with him," whispered Renua.
"Got it," said Kriskaku. "Come get me, you big brainless idiot."
The troll charged and Kriskaku dodged. Instead, the troll ran into a tree.
Kriskaku looked around trying to find Renua. He couldn't see him.
The troll took his chance and grabbed Kriskaku by the neck and opened his mouth.
Then, out of nowhere, a net made of vines and stones fell on the troll. Kriskaku climbed out the net and looked at the goblin.
"Did you really just do that?" Kriskaku said. "You could have killed me."
"Well, gotta risk something once in a while."
They soon came to a clear blue river with a mound on top. A small hole was dug next to the mound and a big hole in the middle of it. "This is the troll's home," said Renua.
They waded through the river. On the other side, all they could see was rocks, grass, and a few bushes. Renua climbed up onto a rock. "Your destination is dead ahead."
"That's good," Kriskaku shouted with excitement in his voice. "But there's a drake in the way," said Renua.
"Okay, we'll have lunch first."
Once they'd finished, they continued their quest. All of a sudden, they came across the drake. Its eyes flickered open, and Kriskaku could see the darkness in those blood red eyes.
Renua stared at it, and the drake stared back. The drake let out a roar, and Kriskaku could hear Renua over the noise shout,
"Run! Why is it so big?"
It had almost developed into a dragon. That's why its front legs have almost gone. "We can take cover in your destination," Renua said.
"Okay, is there any other place we can take cover in?" he asked.
He was tired, and it was getting harder for him to rip his boots free from the sticky mud.
"Yes, there's a cave with nothing inside, but it's more than 5 miles away. We won't be able to hold on for that long."
"The dragon's cave it is then," Kriskaku shouted over the noise of another roar.
They carried on running until they saw the lair of the dragon. They slid down a slope into never-ending darkness, until, thud, they hit hard, rocky floor.
Kriskaku's head hurt. He dragged himself off the floor, stood up, his blue eyes darting around, taking in the surroundings.
He was in a dark, gloomy cavern, with water dripping from the ceiling, making puddles on the floor. Mist swirled around the cave like a cold wind was tossing it about.
All of a sudden, Kriskaku saw dragon fire flare upwards as the great dragon roared up at him. The spikes on his back flew upwards as he prepared for battle.
Kriskaku drew his sword and started searching for Renua while dodging blasts from the beast.
He could not find his goblin friend anywhere.
And then, a new dragon flew up, grasped the other dragon and tossed it into a boulder.
The new dragon gave Kriskaku a wink, and the knowledge of the dragon blasted into his mind like a bullet.
As the great dragon got tossed close enough to Kriskaku, he swung his sword and sliced one of its scales clean off.
The dragon battle raged on, and one of the dragons screeched in agony and fell to the floor.
It didn't move. It just lay there motionless. All of a sudden, the remaining dragon turned back into the goblin.
He fell to the floor with a thump. When Kriskaku got over to Renua, he saw he was badly wounded.
He wrapped some cloth around Renua's injured arm, made a fire, and cooked some sausages.
When Renua woke up, the first thing he saw was a cooked sausage dangling in front of his face.
He grabbed it, ate it, and said, "I will teleport you back to your home. I will stay here in the wild where I belong."
"No, you're coming with me!" Kriskaku shouted back.
"Sorry, but your people will kill me."
Before Kriskaku could even say bye, he was on the outskirts of his homeland. He walked in the settlement and he heard a shout say, "He's back!"
As soon as that was said, a great party was held, and at the end of the celebration, Kriskaku looked up to the night sky and said, "I will never forget you, old friend." What a great story.
What a great story. I did not see the goblin turning into a dragon.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
No, I really like your description in there. This was from a child who, at the time, was only 9 years old, which is pretty incredible. Have all those ideas.
It is, and all of the linking through from the beginning of the story all the way through it, the tiny bits and hints of feelings and settings, getting all the way to the end. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, thank you, KD, for that story.
Yeah.
Tune back in for our next one, because it might just be your story.